Absolutely nothing beats windshield time. Welcome back to Dan the Road Trip Guy, a podcast where we have candid conversations about life lessons learned on the road. I'm your host, Bimmer enthusiast and road trip extraordinaire, Dan Neal. And now, on to the show. Hey, my guest today is Willy T. Ribbs. Willy and I have never met in person. We linked up on Facebook. I don't know why he accepted my request several years ago, but he did. And then in 2020, I watched Uppity. And if you haven't seen Uppity, I highly suggest you go tune it in and watch it, because it's a great, if you want to call it a documentary, on Willy T's racing career and the obstacles he overcame. So a friend of mine asked me today, he goes, how in the world did you link up with Willy T. Ribbs? And I said, well, I think I'm just fortunate or lucky. I'm not sure. So anyway, we're just going to chat today. And so welcome to the show, Willy T.
Welcome. Thanks, Dan. And I got to say, you are a very patient man. And you are relentless when it comes to making something happen, but you have the patience of a fox.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll have to remind my children of that, okay? So, hey, anyway, I like to start my shows, and I'm not going to tell a lot about Willy T. He's going to tell you. Let's start this show with pick your favorite racetrack, and let's take a warm-up lap or two, and just tell my listeners, because a lot of people who listen to me aren't in the racing world. Tell them who you are.
Well, your guest today is Willy T. Ribbs, and who's been in the sport in my entire life. I grew up in it with my dad, racing as a kid, and by the time I was 9 years old, I knew what my career was going to be. And my family had a successful business that they could finance my chosen profession. Kind
of the start that I learned was when you went to Europe. So what did you do before that?
Well, I mean, I worked in, I went to school, of course. Yeah. High school. Was on the ranch with my grandfather. He owned a 300-acre ranch in Northern California. And so I was on the ranch as a teenager and went to high school in a small high school up there near Woodland, California. But when I got out of high school, I did 1 year at junior college, and I worked in the family business at the same time. And I told my parents I wanted to go to England to start my racing career. And mind you, I knew my dad was racing from the time I was born. So I had been traveling with him as a kid. So I understood the sport. I understood what you needed to do and where you needed to go to begin. So I wanted to be in Formula One. So my parents sent me to England when I was 21 years old. And I'd worked in the family business for a while. And I told my mom that, I want to start my career, and I want to start in England. And she said, okay, I'll talk to your dad. There's no problem. They said, all right.
You raced against some big names in that Formula Ford series, did you not? Some names that went on.
Probably the biggest was Nigel Mansell. There was some really hot drivers over there. I didn't race against Derek Daly or Nelson Piquet, but I did Mansell. And we were all over at the same time. Mansell and I were in Formula Ford. Billy Shepard and Trevor Van Rooyen. There were some pretty stout drivers. And that's the beginning. And that's where you start. That was a starting point. You started as Formula Ford. Then your next step up the ladder would be Formula 3. Well, I ran out of money, and my parents, they said, you need to come home because we got some other kids we need to send through college, and you're not going to, use up their money. So racing. So I came home, but I came home a champion. I met some people here that to take me to the next level, which was Formula Atlantic in the United States. If it was in England, it had been Formula 3.
Yeah, okay.
Here, it was Formula Atlantic. I did well enough to get the attention of Paul Newman, who suggested that I take his advice and go to a team in Trans Am that he already had the deal done with. He called me. out of nowhere.
How'd you meet Paul Newman? How'd you meet Paul?
I had met him several times when I was a kid, when I was at the races with my dad. I think the first time I met him, I was 15. It was Riverside, California. And then I saw him again when I was racing Formula Atlantic, because he had a team in Can-Am when I was racing Formula Atlantic. So I'd see him. Well, he called me in November of 82. Actually, it was 2 days before Thanksgiving, 1982, and says, I got a deal for you if you want it. All you have to do is say yes, and it's a done deal. So I said, well, do you recommend it? He says, I recommend it.
I don't think I was following you back then. I was pretty young when you were in the Atlantic series here, but I did, on Uppity, it showed the race there, I believe, in Long Beach. Yeah. And you were in the lead, correct? Or running?
Yeah, I was on pole, and I was in the lead. And I think what gave me a big confidence boost out of that is I had very little time in the car. In fact, I practiced a half a day with the car. I got in that car. The other drivers had been driving prior to me, racing and testing. To jump right in it, put it on the pole, and lead the race until the engine failed was a big confidence builder for me. And I think that's what got Paul Newman's attention, and a lot of others, including Bernie Ecclestone and Dan Gurney. They were all there at Long Beach Grand Prix. Everyone was there.
Well, did you ever test a Formula One car? I wasn't for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
For Bernie Ecclestone.
Yeah.
In Portugal it was 1985.
I thought so. Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of friends who I think they compare racing to other sports, and how all those folks get huge contracts with huge money coming at them. And I have to explain to my friends, well, racing's a little bit different. You bring money. You either bring money or you bring a sponsor. And then they go, oh, really?
Yeah, that's probably why the sport is so difficult to be involved with, because, it's not a stick and ball sport. And stick and ball sports start in high school right through college. And if you have any talent in those sports, you're going to have a red carpet ride right to the top of the profession, and you're going to get paid very well. And it's structured that if you have any ability, in 5 years you'll be set for life. Well, that doesn't happen in racing. Maybe in Formula One, and that's only a handful of drivers. As a matter of fact, the IndyCar drivers now don't make the money that we were making back in the 90s. We were making more money. The drivers' salaries back then were bigger, and the pay down was farther. Now drive maybe a half a dozen guys to, I'd say 10 guys get paid. Well, Al Unser Jr. and I were very close friends, and we talked, at least 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. Al said that the salaries are just nothing like when he was racing. And, and I made a decent salary back when I was racing in IndyCar.
Good. So taking you back to some years ago, what was your first car?
Road car or race car?
Let's go road car.
It was a Lotus Cortina.
Ah, is that the one
It was my brother's Lotus Cortina, and I had already started driving it before he sold it to me. And he sold it to me when I was 18. That was my very first car.
Oh, and you zipped around the hills there of California, I suppose.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was driving fast at an early age. I was driving at 9 years old. And I was lucky. My family had the property for me to learn how to drive on. My dad, the car I learned how to drive was a Morris Minor 1000 that my dad had, an autocross car. Well, I learned how to drive that. He didn't know I knew how to drive it, but I knew how to drive it because when I got home from school, it was really easy to turn on and off. It had a ignition switch and a button. There was no key ignition for a key. It's switch, button. And, I walked out how he did it, so I did it, and I learned how to drive that. And then, of course, I was on my grandfather's ranch as well, and he had a lot of equipment that I was driving at a very early age.
Yeah, my grandmother would set us on her lap, and she'd take care of the pedals when we were little, and she'd let you steer. She kept a watchful eye on you. And then we had a family grocery store across the street from my house, and all the workers would park up beside the store. And so when it was closing time, I'd round up all the keys, and I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old, round up all the keys and drive all the cars down to the front of the store for them so they'd be ready to go. I think they thought I was doing them a favor, but, I'm getting to drive all these cars, so I'm good to go.
You were their valet at an early age.
Very early age, yeah. So that was fun. But this is Dan, the road trip guy, so I do like to talk about road trips. And my goal when I started this whole thing was I was going to ride around with people. Well, that's not real practical. For you listening, Willy T is in Texas and I'm in Ohio. We're virtually riding down the road today. But any epic road trips that just stand out in your mind and go, wow. That was amazing. Growing up.
Yeah, one in particular. Some of them, and I've driven across country 3 or 4 times, and a couple of times towing a race car and back with another friend of mine. We went across from California to Montreal and then came back, of course. But probably the most memorable road trip I had ever done. I was in London 1979, and Muhammad Ali was there, and I went to see him at his hotel, and I'd already met him, and we were already in contact with each other. So I saw him at the hotel, and his trainer and cornerman, Drew Bundini Brown, was with him, as well as others in entourage that accompanied him. The night before Ali was to leave, because he was there for 3 days, the final night, Bundini says, you're a race driver and I need my car driven. I said, well, where? Well, we're going to move from New York, and the whole Ali entourage and camp was moving from the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, to L.A. So he says, are you going to be in New York anytime in the next couple of weeks? I said, well, matter of fact, I'm coming into New York to New Jersey to see a friend. And he said, would you drive my car? He had a black Cadillac Brougham, beautiful car. And he asked me if I'd drive it from New York to California. He didn't want to do it because he was older. So I said, yeah. So I flew to New York. A buddy of mine flew from L.A., who happened to live in L.A., flew from Marina Del Rey, California, met me in New York. We met Bundini at a restaurant. He took us to where his car was, because it was in Manhattan, and we drove the car across country. Now, that car had barely been over 70 miles per hour ever.
Yeah.
Bundini, he didn't drive it very fast, and he hardly ever drove it. We got across from New York to California in about 38 hours. Yeah, about 38. 36 to 38 hours. It was a complete day and then a half a day. And so we drove across Oklahoma. We went 40 because it was it was around December. So we didn't want to get up on 80 and get caught in bad weather. Yep. So we took New York and dropped down, went 40 across, just Tennessee, and then through Oklahoma and through New Mexico into Arizona. We never got under 80 miles per hour the whole way. And once we got out in the flats, we were running that thing, the needle speedometer was all the way on the other side. So we got to LA and called Bundini, and he said, where are you? You guys in Ohio? I said, no, we're in LA. He said, no, I know you're going to LA. Where are you now? I said, we are in LA. Well, how's my car? How's my car? Is it okay? I said, oh yeah, we hadn't had any problem with it. How fast were you going? I said, we were running, we never stopped. We did not stop. When someone was driving, we stopped for fuel, maybe get a snack, but we never really parked. Yep. So we got across, and his car did not sound the same when he fired it up when he got to LA.
Ran great.
he called me. He says, "How come the thing is knocking?" I said, "What do you mean knocking?" He says, "When I start it up, it makes a clicking sound. It's click, 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 click." I said, "Well, the lifters. That's probably the lifters."
They weren't used to that kind of driving.
Yeah, no, but we went across nonstop, did not go to a hotel, only thing, fuel, fast food, and we kept driving while we ate.
Yeah, that's kind of how I like to drive. I ride around every year with Brock Yates Jr. for one lap of America, which I don't know if you know what that is, but that's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've been riding around with him since '06. I'm accustomed to driving late nights, and they're not quite as crazy as the Cannonball days, but we have fun.
I don't really like doing long trips. When I was younger, I don't really like much driving over 5 hours anymore.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
When you're younger, it doesn't matter. You're learning the countryside, but as you get older, you have to go faster. A lot of people, I've done interviews, and I was asked, well, have you gotten older? Have you slowed down? You know, the typical theory is as you get older, you slow down.
Sure.
I told them, wait a minute. As you get older, you're running out of time. Okay, 16 and 17, 18, they shouldn't get any speeding tickets. They got all the time in the world.
That's right.
If you get older, once you get people 80 and 90, they should have all the speeding tickets because we're running out of time.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Clock is ticking. We're down to the 2-minute mark.
Getting there.
So now I don't waste any time. I get on the plane, boom, get there, and I'm moving faster now than I did when I was young.
Yeah, good for you. You look great.
I mean, 67, and, I work out nearly every day. I stay, I've got sort of my own training facility right here at the house. And so I'm on that elliptical, I'm on the big heavy bag, I'm on the speed bag. Plus I've got property where I can run on my own property. I don't have to go to a track or go somewhere to jog. I can run right here on the property.
That's good. Yeah.
So, and I like staying in good physical condition and plus, I'm not racing anymore, but I compete. I shoot.
We're going to get to that. I got questions for you on that. Hold that thought.
All right.
Well, you raced last year. I didn't tell people. I didn't tell people when you raced. You raced in the 70s, 80s, 90s that I know of, and then made an appearance in the SRX. Right? I didn't watch much of that, but I saw you on there, and that was in 2021, right?
Yeah, I did SRX last year. Ray Abraham called me and says, "Look, we want to get legends of the sport, and we're going to run." Initially, it was going to be 4 bull rings, 2 on dirt, 2 on pavement, and 2 on a road course. That was the initial game plan. Well, I signed the contract, and Ray said about a month later, he says, "We're not going to be able to do any road courses. We'll be able to do 2 dirt and 4 pavement, 4 asphalt." So that's what we ended up doing. And, I'm not a specialist at bull ring racing.
Right.
They're half mile ovals.
Yeah.
And what I did like was the dirt. I enjoyed racing on the dirt.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That's cool. Speaking of racing, memorable event, race from your career. We know you were the first African-American black man to qualify for the Indy 500. Any other race, though, that...
There's only been 2.
2 races?
In 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
2.
What's one that stands out to you that you just look back on and go, wow, that was the race?
Well, Indy, of course, is going to be the crown,
sure.
The crown jewel of my career because how difficult it was to get there in the first place and how difficult it was to get into the race.
Yep.
Back in those days, they had 65 cars for 33 spots.
Yep.
So, it was, Indy's always hard, but it was really tough. And I didn't have the best equipment. So that, from the challenge standpoint, was probably the most satisfying. Now, I've had races where I won and, different, places and on different tracks that, mean a lot, but nothing touches Indy.
Well, nothing touches that place, right? I took a friend this year. He hadn't been there in 40 years. So I said, come on, you go with me. And so he went with me, and we had seats in the top row down in turn kind of between 3 and 4, closer to 3. And I walked him all over that place. We walked 10 miles that day because I wanted to show him the whole place. I think even he was just in awe because he hadn't been there in so long. And, you just walk into that place and you go, wow. And if you try to walk from turn 4 down to turn 1, people are like, wow, that's a long way. And it's like, yeah, it's about a mile. So,
yeah, no, it's if a person's into getting 10,000 steps a day, they'll get it there.
Yeah, they sure will. They sure will. I think we got 20 that day. And yeah. Anyway, we won't steal too much from Uppity because I hope people really watch it because to me I love racing, but it's an emotional movie about our society as a whole.
I got a lot of messages when it premiered. I mean, from Sean Penn to, I had some other actors and producers reach out to me, but it was Brian Koppelman that saw it and said, "This is, to get Jimmy Kimmel and Jay Leno to say what a great film." In fact, they came to the premiere. Leno and Jimmy Kimmel were there. But when Brian Koppelman, the producer of Billions, which is on Showtime, Showtime's number one cash cow is Billions, produced by Brian Koppelman. Koppelman saw it and called Showtime and said, "I've just found my next project." So we've signed a contract, 4 years, 10 episodes a year, produced by Brian Koppelman, directed by Don Cheadle.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah.
We got that to look forward to.
Yeah, that's next. And we've been going on Zoom doing interviews about episodes and scenes and narratives for the first 2 seasons. And they're just their mouths are open about everything that happened that was not in Uppity.
Oh, wow.
Okay, the series, made for TV series, is going to have some really hot stuff. I mean, jaw dropping.
Oh, okay. All right.
That we could not get into Uppity.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Wow. I can't wait for that. So when will that be? Do we know? When will that be? Do you know?
We'll go into production. I'm thinking March of 23.
Okay.
One thing about Showtime, they like all their scripts to be written. They don't want a script per episode. They want all the scripts for all the episodes for that season.
Okay.
The first season.
Sure.
So it takes a little bit longer, and we gotta get the scenes right and get close to authenticity.
Yeah.
But the actor, and I asked him, I said, who's going to play Willy T that sounds close to Willy T, that looks close to Willy T, that has the metaphors that he's got, that grew up on a ranch, that has metaphors from the country, metaphors from the city. Who can sound like that? Who can come? They said, you're going to teach him. That's what you're going to do. You're going to spend, and I've got a consultant deal, so I will be consultant for the show. But I got to get the character to walk and talk, have the same sort of mannerism as close as we can get it to.
Yeah, because you had some pretty cool mannerisms in those young days.
Well, uppity didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen by accident. I think the problem was, Dan, and I was told this when I was in NASCAR in 1986. For the few months I was down there, I was told that I was out of my place. That you really don't. People have never been around anyone like you down here. We've been around African Americans, or as they said in those days, we've been around colored folks, but we've never been around anyone like you. So
from the West Coast, I guess they meant, right?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know where they thought I came from, right?
Yeah.
But I made it clear that, I don't walk behind you.
No.
And I don't say, yes, sir. And I don't look down when I talk to you.
Right.
And you say the wrong thing, you're going to be eating your dinner through a straw. I made that clear.
Yep. That's good. So maybe we need a little more of that today. What do you think?
Yeah. But at the same time, I wasn't going to run to the press and complain that someone called me the N-word.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to cost anyone their job, and I wasn't going to embarrass him. The only time you were going to be embarrassed is when you showed up with a black eye or your puffed up lip.
Yeah.
Then you were going to have to explain why you got that. But I wasn't. I was never. And a lot of people ask me, Willy T, you've never played the victim. You've never. I said, that's not how I was raised. My grandpa kicked my ass if I tried to play the victim.
Yeah. By the looks of that picture of him on Uppity, he was he might have been. He looked like a little guy, but I guess
he had the most riveting look I've ever seen in any human being. When he looked at you, have you ever looked in the eyes of a cobra snake?
No.
Well, he had eyes of a cobra. I mean, and he didn't blink when he looked at you. But he was a fair man. He was very fair. He wasn't abusive, but you did not get out of line with him.
Yeah.
And there was no gray area. There was right and wrong. And when we were growing up, we learned it in the house. He said the first rules you learn are in your household. Right and wrong you learn in your household. And if you don't respect right and wrong in your household, when you go out and get outside in public, you're not going to respect the law. And he damn sure was honest about that. You must obey the law.
Wow.
You must.
Yeah. In racing up till that, it seemed like that qualifying run is when you earned the respect, I guess, or something. You felt like you belonged, maybe, because all these people are kind of saluting you as you come around the track on that cool down. A few times I thought you couldn't get out of the car, but you were so excited. But when you were racing in NASCAR and some of those other, did you feel like the drivers respected you, some of them?
Oh, yeah, I knew that there was some that didn't want to.
Yeah.
And that wasn't based on talent. That was based on color. Yeah. However, the guys who were great, the drivers in there, Earnhardt, Dale Sr. respected the hell out of me. So did Waltrip. So did Harry Gamp. So did Al. Those guys knew. They knew I was lacking the equipment to be up front. Yeah. But they knew where the talent was. They knew it was there. Yeah. And
they saw you as a racer. They saw you as a competitor, a man, and a racer. They looked way beyond color, don't you think?
Well, some did, some didn't. There was some that were stuck in Jim Crow era. But I didn't. What their thoughts about me meant absolutely nothing. And they knew it. And they sort of steered clear. There were some that were very just good human beings. And one of them still, and I'm good friends with today, and that's Michael Waltrip. Michael Waltrip and I are really good friends. Bobby Labonte, great friends. Bill Elliott. I mean, just good human beings that I have a great relationship with to this day.
Yeah. Was there a difference between NASCAR and that feeling and IndyCar from a driver perspective?
About the same. There was IndyCar drivers that had no use for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably, my closest friend in IndyCar is Al Unser Jr. Was then, back when we first started together racing, and now. Yeah. I'll be coming here end of October and spending a week here, and he does it every year. But, there was some good people in IndyCar. And as far as drivers, Michael Andretti, good person. Yeah. Al Jr., Mansell, of course, Emerson Fittipaldi, Lion Dyke. I mean, I can go down, Lion Dyke, I could go down the list. Sure. Just some great guys that I have their back in a heartbeat. Mark Smith. Yeah, that's been a good experience. And there's two that I'm in contact with now. all the time. That's Al Jr. and Mark Smith, and occasionally Ari Lyondike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, that's cool. That's really good. Hey, you mentioned shooting earlier. How'd you get into that? Tell us a little bit about that.
I grew up when I was on the ranch with my grandfather. He was not into auto racing. He hated it. He didn't talk about it. But he was an avid shooter. I started shooting on the ranch when I was about 6 years old, and I'd go out hunting with him. He was an avid quail and pheasant and bird dove hunter. So I started shooting on the ranch. And my grandmother would, when I got home from high school, my grandmother would say, go out and get some quail. I want to have quail dinner. So I'd go down on the property and with the dogs, because he had 2 bird dogs, and I'd go out and get a limit of quail, which was about 10 in those days, 10 or 12. Come back, and my grandmother would cook them for dinner, or I'd go out and go dove hunting on the ranch and bang and shoot them down. Well, as I got older, as I started my racing career, I wasn't hunting as much. It varies. Maybe every couple of years I go duck hunting with my uncle. All the drivers in the off season, or even during the season, they all like to golf. Okay, golf didn't make enough noise to suit me. And when I was living in San Jose, California, I lived on San Jose Country Club. I lived on the country club 16 years. On the back fairway. I open up my gate, I'm on the grass, right?
Yeah.
I was on it twice in 16 years, and not golfing, right? I went out there on a golf cart with some people that I knew that were out there. But I like shooting, but hunting season is only from September until January, February. So I got into clay shooting. My older brother was into shooting clay, similar to skeet and trap. Okay. So he was shooting floating clay. So he invited me to do a competition he was in, where I went out and shot better than he did. In fact, I ended up 3rd out of 50 people and my first competition. So I liked it. And so I started competing. And then my son, Theo, was real young at the time, and he would go out with me. And then he started shooting when he was around 9. And right now, Theo's 31 and a top 10 shooter in the world, not United States, world.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in fact, he just got back from Italy 2 weeks ago in World FITAS Championship near Rome. So, and Theo's all over the world. He's in Dubai. He's in Italy. That's all he does. He's professional.
Wow.
And so
that's cool.
Yeah. So once he got into it, I stepped away. Once he started really competing, he became obviously a better shooter than me. And I was a master shooter. He became a world-class master shooter. And so I said, all right, there's only enough room for one race driver on this team. So I put the gun, put it in the gun cabinet. I got back shooting just about a year ago, shooting not sporting clay, but Halise. So it's a different type of shotgun discipline.
Yeah, you sent me a link to it, so I looked it up real quick. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, Helice, Halise.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal worldwide. And I got it. I just did it by accident. I was out and practicing with Theo, and they had a Halise ring, and I asked the manager there, Julie, I said, can I shoot some Halise? She said, yeah. So I did it, and I thought, this is great. Theo, you go shoot clay. I'm going to shoot Halise. So I just started competing this year.
Oh, nice. We'll be watching for you there, too. That'll probably be another documentary about you after that, right?
But I enjoy it. And, if you look on the wall, there's all Theo's, accomplishments on that side. I'm on one side and he's on the other.
That's great. That's good. If you could head out today, this is one of my road trip questions. If you could head out today and you could take somebody with you, now maybe they're not here anymore, but they are here. I never know how to ask that, dead or alive. And I never like the way that sounds. But if you could head out with anybody, who would you go with and where would you go?
Go on a road trip with Lyndon Johnson. I just think the guy was just incredible human being. Doing what he did at the time. I liked, him, Barack, right? Who was living. Yeah. Jimmy Clark. Yeah. Fangio. Yeah, there's just different individuals. Joe Namath.
Yeah.
Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, Muhammad Ali. And I've been on trip with Muhammad Ali. I mean, he's driven me around London. He's driven me around L.A. in his Rolls Royce.
Did he teach you that shuffle, or did you just watch him and pick that up?
I watched him.
Yeah.
And when I did it, he called me when he saw it on TV. What you doing jumping on that car like that? You don't look as good as me doing. But you won, and so you can do what the hell you want.
Yeah, I remember growing up when he was boxing, and we only got 2 channels where I grew up. I told you I grew up in the country, NBC and CBS. And I remember when those fights would come on, I'd be looking for them, and got to see a few of those fights on TV, and that was just always cool to me.
He's from Louisville. He's from your state.
Yeah,
right.
We never knew that existed. That was a little too far north, for us. So never got over there until I got older. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, a lot of people. A lot of good people. Anything on your bucket list? Anything that's still hanging out there that you go, I got to do this?
I got to tell you, Dan.
Knowing you're probably going to climb Mount Everest or something like that. But
I've always loved to challenge myself to be a success or be good or great at what I was doing. And no matter whether it's shooting a shotgun or driving a racing car, I'm right now U.S. ambassador to Formula One.
You told me that in a text, I think. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Formula One hired me as a U.S. ambassador. That I want to bring to Formula One some other than just being a face. I want to bring to them, all right, this is what direction you can take the sport in. The competitive side, great, we got that handled. You guys got the competition side of Formula One handled. It's a great show.
Yep.
How do you make all people identify with you? Mm-hmm. All people want to see you, right, and want to watch you. That's your biggest job.
Yeah.
And not everyone tunes into Formula One. Not all people tune into Formula One.
No.
You want people to tune in. The NFL is a monster sport and a monster business and a monster entertainment company because everyone tunes in to watch them.
Yeah, they sure do.
And that's what Formula One's got to do. That's what direction I'm trying to assist them in going in.
Yeah. Willy T, you became the first black man to test an F1 car back in the 80s. You became the first black man to qualify for the Indy 500 in 91, complete all 500 miles in 93. We've talked about the obstacles and challenges you faced during your racing career. I'd like to talk about diversity for just a few minutes, particularly in IndyCar, since that's a series I follow more closely than others. So I'd just like to get your thoughts on that and if it's headed in the right direction.
Roger Penske's sort of spearheading that drive for diversity in IndyCar, but it can't be left up to Roger alone.
Yeah.
He's NASCAR, and I never thought I would ever say this, but NASCAR is lapping IndyCar when it comes to diversity.
Yeah.
I mean, NASCAR's got 2 owners that are African American. One's name is Jordan, right?
Yeah.
The other name is Brad Daugherty. All right, so they got Brad Daugherty as an owner. They got Michael Jordan as an owner. Apparently, LeBron James is coming in, right? And they've got Wallace, Bubs.
Yeah.
They got Bubs in there. They got a couple of other kids that they're grooming right now. So I never thought NASCAR would be ahead of IndyCar, especially after I was there in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, doors open, right? Doors open.
Yeah.
How come you're not? And I'm going to tell you what, a lot of media in motorsports in IndyCar said, why did IndyCar drop the ball with you and Cosby and did not keep you in that series?
Why?
I mean, I've got my theories, but the auto racing has got some big egos, and sometimes their ego overrules their common sense.
Sure. You obviously brought up a young man properly. He's off doing really well around the country. What would you tell young people? They get this passion or whatever they're chasing after. What do you tell? What's Willy T. Ribbs tell these young people if he's in a room of young people? What do you say to them?
growing up, you and I are close to the same age, right? We're not too far away.
Pretty close.
There was a discipline that we were raised with. There was, first of all, it was right and wrong. Okay, right and wrong. You treat someone the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You also don't look to blame others for why you're not getting it done. You keep drilling until you get it done. Okay. You can't look to be a victim. You must be hard. You must be fair. You must, and hard, that might not be the right word, but you must be resolved. You must, and don't, you work hard. Yeah. My Theo, I raised him old school, Dan. Hell, when he was a kid, him and my daughter, I'd have him out in the garden pulling weed.
Yep.
They were pulling weeds when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. Why do we got to do this? That's my daughter. I mean, she was like, Daddy, I'm getting my nails dirty. But you can learn how to work. Yeah. All right. When we were growing up on the ranch, you worked every day, all day. We never watched TV. We got to watch TV when all the work was done and dinner, and you had dinner and it was dark. Yeah. Right. And if there was work to do in the dark, you were doing it, and you didn't ask why. You didn't say, I don't feel like it. Yeah. Or why do we have to do this? You did it. And that's what these kids, don't be afraid to be criticized. Okay. Don't be afraid to you make a mistake, own it.
Yeah. I think I told you I grew up, maybe I didn't. I grew up across the street from the family grocery store. My grandparents had started it. My mom ran it till she had kids. Then my uncle took it over. And I'll never forget, I walked across the street, and it was, I was 9 years old, and my uncle was out. This was back in the days of pop bottles, that people brought back, and we turned them into Pepsi or Coke or whoever it was. And he looked straight at me and he said, "It's time for you to go to work." And I'm like, okay. And so I went to work in the family grocery store, and I worked there through college and put myself through college. And
you didn't object to it. And you didn't say, well, why?
Nope.
Yeah. And Henry said, you want something in this world, you got to work for it.
And my mom was like, she worked there when I was growing up. She went back and worked with him, and there was no standing around. If you're waiting on a customer to come and check out, there's a window to clean, there's a floor to sweep, or that shelf needs faced up. So you get at it. And a lot of the older guys, boy, they didn't like my mom putting down the law.
My uncle was on his kids when we were out. He used to say, if you see something that needs to be done, do it. Don't be a mule. A mule's got to be told what to do. Yeah. Whoa, get up, back up. Don't be a mule. If you look at something that needs to be done, do it. Yep. If someone needs some help, they shouldn't have to ask you. You should be able to see they need help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's missing today. Yeah. Anyway.
Dan, I'm almost out of battery.
Yep, and we're done. I give you, plug something. Tell us how to find Willy T. Ribs online.
Uppity on of course, on Pluto TV now. Which is free.
Okay.
And,
well, here I paid for it. I paid for it on Prime.
Yeah.
I hope you got a little money for that.
Well, no, they keep all the money. I get it. I get the money in the back door.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So, but yeah, we're on Pluto TV, Uppity, and then for all the Twitter people, Twitter me.
Yeah. What is your Twitter handle?
Willy T. Ribs.
Willy T. Ribs. Imagine that. Okay. Hey. I can't thank you enough. I hope we can meet up someday, and I'll buy you dinner.
Hey, I'll buy drinks. You buy dinner.
I'll be in Texas sometime, so look out.
Just let me know, Daniel.
All right. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate you too.
Yep. Have a good night.
Yeah. Cheers.
Bye now.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Dan the Road Trip Guy, and we look forward to having you back again next time. In the meantime, if you want to find me, you can find me on the internet at Danny, D-A-N-N-Y, Neal, Neal.com. Until we meet up again, keep having conversations and keep driving.